my part. I think the EV charging and the medical transport are interesting and new, and so it's good to stay on top of that. We don't know how the EV charging is working out. Should we be putting more charging stations in? Do we need to put one at the police station? Is it really being used quite a bit? And the medical transport, well, you know, we have projections for what might be coming in for that. It would be good to follow that and see how that new line of business is doing. The other departments, I wouldn't care.
I mean, I guess I would suggest with that idea that it would be up to you to decide what to report. Like if there was something worthy of reporting, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and thank you, Madam Chair, because, you know, I want to treat the new departments that fall underneath the town administrator equally, and I think it makes a lot of sense because it is new and we should do the audit, to come back to you as a goal to say, we did the audit, this is what we found, we need to make this change, and this change. I mean, the COSA and the uniform guidance, for example, was like multiple years out, right? It made it onto the management letter, and we knew we were getting those grants, we're like, okay, we gotta push it, because we talked about during my evaluation prioritization of different things. So just, I do appreciate the ability to kind of work with the team to make sure these things are getting done. And then if there's something that, like with PFAS or whatever it is that sort of spikes, or a water ban, or temporary, or voluntary, letting you know, or when it comes to the rates, I mean, that's a conversation that the select board has to basically, we'll bring it to you and say, this is what we think is the best to do, but how do you ultimately make that decision in guidance?
And I think, you know, for the EV charging, you would be coming back to us anyway to keep us apprised of how is this working out. It's a brand new feature that we put in place, and well, you know, how's that working out? The medical transport I would find to be very interesting because we just recently took that over, and I think Jen would probably want to call and share with us, how is it going?
Yeah.
Are revenues on target to what we thought? Are costs higher or lower? How's the system working? How's the new policy with waivers and billing going? I mean,
Absolutely.
just because that's such a big ticket item, and
it's new.
and new.
Right.
Once we can get it running,
Yeah,
then it's quarterly or semi-annually or something like this, annually maybe, but.
yeah, and is Kevin kind of, or if we say, you know what, we haven't heard how this is going in a while, could you give us an update on
Just
that?
gotta let me know, so exactly,
You know,
we'll bring it to you if it's.
This is more for getting in place the policies
Yeah.
to start, and then just finding out how some of our new businesses are running.
Okay. Sounds good.
Is you know what I would take on this. I don't know, Dick, you would.
I think you simplified it well. I think that makes sense.
All right.
Okay, moving on then, improve pedestrian safety and livability.
Yes, and so I put the note there that one of the sources of, why are we doing this? That the open space plan came back and sidewalks was clearly something that came in, and I just was pointing that up. Question 8 was, what additional recreation facilities do we need? What additional recreation facilities are most needed? And in the responses, the thing that came back in the order, there were 5 of them that they identified as high level. 50% answered connecting existing trails to one another. 40% answered nature trails, more nature trails. 38% created recreation trails, was very important. 40% said additional sidewalks were very important.
Did we turn off the AC by the way?
Yeah.
Is anyone else feeling
It's
it?
getting kind of warm in
Yeah,
here.
we're all
I think
getting
it
one.
shuts off. It's on a timer.
It's like when they turn the lights on in the bar, right?
It's that hour.
Yeah,
What are we up to, Kevin, for a temperature?
104.
We were at 73.
105, great guess.
Yeah.
We're at 76.
Wait, this is energy conservation. We want to be green.
Spend the money.
Yeah, give me a little,
All my papers are gonna start blowing again now.
So there's I think there's a strong sense from a number of people. The survey was almost 400 people doing it, yeah, because you have to be careful, you know, 50 people to the survey, not 400, 387 or something, I don't know, 67. It was a good number of people that did the survey. And so if they're saying they want more sidewalks, I mean, this is talking. Now they say they want connecting trails. Well, you know, some of this sidewalk stuff is like connecting trails, too, in other words. So I think that this is the sort of thing that will take some effort. What we should be looking at is shovel ready. Identify some of them, understand what they are, maybe then have to put some money into it in order to do a design, so we know what the issues are. And it may also mean that at town meeting, we need to do some taking, somebody's, the beginning of somebody's property or something like that in order to put the sidewalk there. But these are things that can be planned out over time, and then when a grant becomes available, or feds are trying to get rid of this money, and they say shovel ready, we say, hey,
Yeah.
right there.
How did it work last year with the Grove Street and the Complete Street grants? Was that something that we already had a plan for? I mean, they already had sidewalks, so it was just really, most of them anyway. I know there was the curve around Washington Street that was new.
That was, I think, the third try by Kelly to get that grant money to connect them to the downtown.
Okay.
That was a
That was
multi-year effort.
specifically to connect sidewalks.
Yeah.
That, it was the name of it, and it was specifically done. So it only really added about 100 feet of sidewalk.
It was a very
But that
important
was the
100 feet from a
purpose.
guy who walks his dog around that corner regularly.
But I'll tell you, that improved that corner
Yeah.
so much by making it one way, and that was very dangerous before, I think that improved
Yeah,
that
and
great.
one of the examples we can have of what a great improvement that happened, is from Maples, on South Main Street, from Maple Street to Salem Road. They put that stone dust path in there on South Main Street. And it has been great for the people. A lot of people use that, and it's much safer than, the sidewalk used to stop at Maple Street, and then you had to walk on South Main Street to get to Salem Road, so it's much less traffic, so it's much safer. But they put that damn stone dust path in there, and it's been used so well. I mean,
Are there areas, Dick, that you would say we know are in need of a sidewalk? Or are we starting from the
Okay.
ground up?
Well, I can give you some, but I can tell you that we received an email from somebody 12 months ago for one of them. I mean, I know
Was that the
that's
one on, not Washington, but extending down, that you talked about in the
on,
previous
on,
meeting?
on Boxford Road.
Yeah,
Yep.
Oxford Road.
And so there's some, I think we talked about this
Yeah.
already, that's right.
Yeah,
There's
'cause we
some
were talking about
25
that
Some
intersection and we talked
25,
about-
there's some 25 houses in that section on Boston Street, and then Full Farm Road and Pine, whatever that is, yeah, there's 3 different roads on there. 25 that could come down and be able to use that. And it may very well help the schools too, because at least, and you want to talk about healthy, you can tell the kids, yeah, you can walk across the school, it's safe. Now, you say you're gonna walk, you have to make that water crossing. And so that's now, and, I would, if I was a parent, I wouldn't be too happy about sending them. So there's an example of one where people have written to us on it, but I also know, for example, from way back, we know about the bike trip paths that we got for the bicentennial, right? They went to Hood's Pond and they went to Clark Park. And those things are very well used, and it's much better. 97, you can traverse 97 pretty safely up to Hood Pond. You're not going to take it over like a car. One of the problems was though, for some reason, I don't know why, just before I moved here, the one that went to Clark Park went as far as North Street and stopped. And so if you want to get to Clark Park, you have to go over a water crossing and get to Clark Park. So I can see where some parents are not happy about that. But that represents another area of Topsfield, North Street and Erin Drive and such, that can more easily use that and get through that that one part is particularly hard, from Clark Park to Ipswich Road.
Who would do that evaluation? Highway department?
Who's one?
Who would do that evaluation
Oh,
of
oh,
the state of
you
the
mean-
sidewalks and, what resources
So
Yeah,
Superintendent
yeah,
Wiles,
You gotta get an engineer to do the design.
under
which is
Gary?
just-
So Gary would oversee.
Yeah, sure.
yeah, and so basically, Gary would, Superintendent Wiles would identify sidewalks and, typically what I'd probably wanna do is get some feedback from you folks, just like we're doing now, just say, these are the ones that the superintendent's identified as being the most in need of replacement for these reasons, and.
Or creation.
Or creation.
Yeah,
no,
because
absolutely.
some of this we're talking about is where
Yeah.
there's nothing.
So, yeah, I think one of the things we're working on is a pavement plan that incorporates the water department, now that we broke down those barriers. I know they communicated, but not necessarily as a formal, unified front when it comes to water main work, getting done, so that then we can come in and pave on top of that, knowing that we've got a water main that's gonna last 100 years, and a road that'll last 50, give or take. So, for instance, we just laid out, we had a meeting maybe a month, 2 months ago, where we laid out what the paving plan is for the next 5 years, best as we know it.
But
And
we
looked
should
at the
know what
water.
that paving plan is, because a paving plan is a technical thing, but it is a political thing. We need to know what that is, and we need to weigh in on it.
So,
Because certain residents are gonna be concerned or
Yeah.
upset with the timing of their roads.
We should be aware of the paving plan. It is a political item, and hopefully it would not be a political item. It's only, technically, this needs to be replaced, not that first. Oh, for this reason, okay, we're gonna replace that first.
I'm sure there's a
That
whole
exists.
science behind what roads
Yeah, I
have
was
to get
gonna say,
replaced
it's not
when.
so much that I think we need to weigh in on it, but I would like to know what it is.
yeah, no, you definitely should, because once we start digging, people are gonna say,
I'd love to
Why
rubber
not my
stamp
street?
it, and then we take the heat if
and then you'll know why. That's
There's
But
a
at
really
least we
good
know what it
example of
is and why
information
we're doing
that
it,
would
and-
help
Yeah.
set people right down if they knew the reason behind it.
Yeah, so one of the and so, absolutely, Mr. Brown, 100%. I think the thing that we're really striving for on the highway is communication with the direct abutters
Yeah.
and those impacted primarily, but also with the broader community. We are incredibly fortunate though in Topsfield. The condition of our roadways up and down are really, really good. That's a credit to a lot of people over a lot of years, including our highway commissioners, David Bond and others. So, you know, I took a ride earlier this spring with Mr. Wilds, Superintendent Wilds, and he showed me the roads, and I said, wow, that's good that that's the condition of the road. I've been in other places where they're not in that condition. To that end, the communication to the neighbors, communication of our road plan, both long-term and short-term, immediately for this season, for example, get the list, share the list. He's actually coming in on the next meeting. Gary and I talked on Tuesday, and I said, are you in a good place? He said, yeah. I said, I expect it, let's come and have you in on the 7 o'clock on the 23rd. So it's on the agenda. He stopped by. So, he's preparing a presentation to you on the roads that are being.
Will we get it ahead of time? I find it so much
Yes.
more helpful to get it ahead of time and
We got-
digest it.
We gotta
We'll
get
make
it
sure,
beforehand.
we'll make sure whatever the presentation is. No, I know. When he gets it probably next week ready, we'll make sure.
At least the list, it doesn't have to be the whole presentation.
So I have, just as an aside, found it interesting this year, because I know 2 of the roads that are set to be repaved. You'd think that residents would be like, yay, but in these 2 roads, I live on one of them, people aren't really interested in having them repaved. Central Street, they don't want it repaved.
Why
Parsonage, because it's gonna, speeding. These are
Oh.
straight road, speeding.
Ah.
You
Oh.
put a nice new fresh blacktop on straight roads like Parsonage and Central where people are already concerned about speeding, and that's just it's gonna shoot it up.
I think the,
Not that I'm suggesting we don't
But
do it, I'm just telling you
But
that when you talk about the political
Right,
side,
Yes,
you
these
think,
are important.
you think that people will be like, yay, my road, but
But the important part here now is to explain
Yep.
the cost of rebuilding the road if we.
And why you
let
need
it
to
go
do it
for
now.
10 years, then
I
it-
understand.
and also weighing
Yeah.
into that now water. I wanna really emphasize long-term planning, that we're already having conversations since January, before January, when we were sitting down, I said, this is a huge priority. We have to make sure that every road we pave, we know it's subsurface, we contact the National Grid ahead of time if there's gas, whatever it might be, electric, underground, we don't have much of that obviously, but we need to make sure everybody's doing the thing, for instance, the
We
roads
don't
in
have
this.
natural, we have natural gas.
Electric, he said
I
electric.
said some
Underground
underground
electric.
electric, we don't have that,
Oh,
but
there is,
just going
there
through
is
the checklist
electric
in my
underground.
mind.
There is electric underground.
Some places,
In
not,
some
not a
places
lot.
not in the roads that
Not a
we're
lot.
looking at. We contacted National Grid with sort of our preliminary list for the next few years,
Oh.
back in the spring.
Copeland Road.
Yeah.
No.
We
but
asked,
yeah.
we asked them, we said, what subgrade work do you have to do? Because we need you to get out there right now. And they looked at it, they said, you have plastic already, it's already been replaced, it's gonna last you, you don't need a replacement on that. So first step is National Grid, then it's water. One thing I'm working on right now with Greg is to do every year to put aside money into a fund which can allow us to do water main work and chip away at it. Right now, one of the roads Superintendent Wiles wanted to do. I've asked to pause and punt it to a year because I wanna see if we can get, if we need to do a better we have to have a better understanding of that pipe that's underneath the ground and if it's gonna last or not, because I don't wanna just pave to pave, it's gotta be paved, built to the bottom up. And so, what they're basically doing is they're gonna do an analysis, but I asked Superintendent Crom, I said, do you have money to do the main? Can we just hammer out this part of it at least? He said, no, we haven't set aside those monies to allow us to do the water main. So it usually is a big chunk debt service to do a bunch of it at one fell swoop. In my opinion, if we could do a better job, sort of pay-as-you-go on it, would be, and put it away over time rather than getting the interest on it and everything else. So it's something we're working on that we're probably going farther into than for.
So that's great that he's coming with a plan. Relative to the sidewalk discussion, when does he put the plan together? Could he incorporate taking a look to see which roads need sidewalks when he goes out to look at the roads and evaluate which ones
No.
need to be paved?
He didn't look to see what roads need sidewalk.
No, well, we're asking him to now, to get an engineer to come out and see which roads need new sidewalks or to repair the sidewalks.
I think that's part of our responsibility. We can work with them, but it's our responsibility to figure out where people from Boxford Road wrote to the Board of Selectmen.
That particular
about-
one, but I don't see our board going out and evaluating which roads need sidewalks. Do you anticipate we would
okay,
go out?
Yeah. Well, it's certainly not Gary Wild. If anything, we might, because it's part of traffic advisory, maybe we turn to the police chief or something, because the main thing here is public safety.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these things, you put the sidewalks in is to keep kids from getting killed.
Okay, I thought we
I don't
just
know.
said it would fall under Gary, so
But
we're changing it now.
here's what it is, when we decide we want to do a sidewalk, for whatever reason, then Gary can give us input as to why he thinks so. But the point is, we decide that we want to do that, we let Gary go after the contract with an engineering firm. So he goes out to bid, gets an engineering firm that is selected, Sandtech, whatever the case may be, and they do the design for us under his,
Okay.
well, I don't care.
Just going
Beyond
back to
anybody,
who the "we" is, who's doing the deciding of the sidewalks, I don't think it's the board deciding what roads need sidewalks. It might be the traffic advisory, I don't know, but I know I'm not going out
Well, we
onto
should
any
be
road to take a look and go, I think you need a sidewalk, and write that down on a piece of paper. We have to identify who that group is who's identifying the sidewalks.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. I think it's a similar approach on the roads. For instance, if you have a road that needs incredible work and you're getting a lot of constituent input on it, ahead of us rolling out that season our plan, let's have that conversation. It can be one-on-one, it can be in a formal setting, but let's have that conversation about that road if it's something that we think, like Coppermine, that's probably a prime example of where neighbors expressed to me originally, and then we brought the board into the conversation, and we ultimately ended up getting there with it. It's a little bit of a unique one, but if there's a petition that comes in to do a road, we'll share it with you folks, we'll talk about it a little bit, and I'll talk with Gary. I've got to trust in Gary and his expertise to be able to say, yeah, these are the roads or sidewalks that really have an issue, or we need to build new. But if there's something you identify, let us know so that can help inform our decisions as we go too.
If we had an effective communication channel, we could ask the residents.
Oh my gosh.
And
Who would say
that's
anything
why
other
it's
than
Oh
our
my
yes?
responsibility for us to collect, rather than a technical thing of somebody trying to say, it's where people think. So I actually spent some time on Bear Hill Road, and I actually had a chance to talk with a couple of people, you probably know them.
Yeah.
But people do go from Parsonage to Surrey Lane, and that's one of the
Yeah,
loops that people
I've
do.
walked, and when you walk on Bear
And
Hill,
there's that
now,
one section that does not have.
it does, Bear Hill definitely does not have a
One of the people
sidewalk.
who lives on Comstock spent time with me, and we looked at it, and we also understand what's town property. The cemetery is probably, it's a half a mile from 97 to the Highbrook Park, Surrey Lane area. And about half of that is the
I
owned
don't
by
think
the
any,
town.
I don't think
As
any
part
of
the
it has a
cemetery.
sidewalk.
I don't think we have to
No,
flush out tonight who's going to be
Oh.
kind of the owner of it, but someone has to take ownership of this objective and spearhead it. We can certainly oversee it, you know, and sign off on it, but I see us more as a policy-making board and not the ones to say sidewalk 1, 2, 3, these streets, et cetera, are the ones that need it. So we can talk about that going forward, the best way and who needs to be in charge of it, if we consider it to be
If we
a
consider
priority.
it to be of value to the town, and again, looking at the open space survey, the people were saying they want sidewalks, okay?
Yeah.
I can tell you some of the technical problems, the political problems are going to be, well, we live on the other side of Route 1 and we are just terrible, we can't do anything anyway, what are you gonna do for us? You're not gonna do anything for us, so forget it. Well, maybe we would wind up doing things. So that's where, as Marshall said, get some input from the citizens is also
We
very
certainly
helpful.
can, it's just how you go about doing
Yeah,
that.
right on.
and-
Well, I think
yeah.
we're all in agreement this is about setting goals, and we all agree that this is an important one, so this ought to find its way into going forward.
Right,
That's-
we
that's
can
why
work
we're
out
here.
the logistics going forward, so we're not even sure it's one of our goals yet, because we
Yep,
haven't gotten
because
the
we
vote
haven't-
yet.
right, we haven't
Yeah,
made
no,
decisions.
fair
Yeah.
enough, fair enough.
So, okay, but we'll move on to the next one, because it's already 9:30. Managing the trees. Dick, I think that was yours?
Oh, yes, again, mine, yeah. So, one of the things that we have to think about is, what was Topsfield a century ago? It was fields, farm field. And those farmers, the colonials, spent a lot of effort getting rid of trees so that they could do their planting. But since then, they've gone fallow, and nature's taken over and put up a lot of trees. The problem with us is that those trees come down and they create problems with power. And we have a good relationship so far now with National Grid, so I think that is important. And I'm not sure how far along they're going to go, but they need to do it. But the same thing goes along with us, that we own a forest, a town forest, not a very big one, but it's town forest, the ability to manage that, but also especially manage the trees along the highways where the power lines are, or where there's no power lines, but if they came down, because they're underground, but if the trees came down, would cause the roads to be blocked and therefore public safety at the wrong time, meaning typically when there's a storm and people are in trouble. So I think that this whole area, now I did do some time, mention this to Kevin too, I talked with Secoria, Mark Secoria, about what towns are doing, and in the process I said, well, we got about $8,000. That's not very much. Because he's talking about somebody like, I think he said Danvers is like $500,000 or something. But I also talked with some of the tree guys, and they said that the Salisbury had allocated $100,000 to manage trees. This is a real thing that's going on. The trees are getting more mature, just like us, unfortunately. I'm the older one. We die at some point, we get sick enough to die. And the trees, you want to take them out before they create a problem. So this is an area that I think we need to address that we did not have to think about when we were selectmen 50 years ago. But now, we need to think about it, we need to have some plans, and unfortunately, it does mean money. But it's the sort of thing that we go to the citizens and help them understand that we're trying to improve public safety and continual power.
I think this one, Dick, also came up in the MVP or hazard mitigation
It
reports.
is part of that too, it is. But it's gonna take some leadership, because it's money, all right?
How does the tree warden tie into this?
Is it, probably.
is that more a reactive position rather than a proactive position? Like, I wanna take down the tree warden responds rather than the tree warden driving around?
The tree warden is responsible for trees on public ways.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And if you want to take a tree down, the tree warden wants to take a tree down, and it's a healthy tree, for some reason, he's got to do it through a public hearing and get it, public input. You can't just take a tree down.
Sure.
This is the way